Roger Stone is a guy that most people on talk radio have interviewed a ton of times because he's so insightful, so inside so many of the issues that we talk about. He is both a political consultant, lobbyist, and strategist, author of a new bestseller, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. Roger Stone, welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show.
Don, great to be with you.
Well, Roger, I'm reading Passage to Power right now. I don't even know why. I picked up the book, the 1,200 pages, whatever it is, on LBJ. And what's the best evidence that LBJ was complicit in any of this?
The very best evidence, of course, is that the only fingerprint found in the sixth-floor sniper's nest by the FBI that they can't identify, that is later identified, belongs to a man named Malcolm Wallace, longtime employee and hitman for Lyndon Baines Johnson. Robert Caro's books are masterful, and he dances all around the question of whether LBJ had John F. Kennedy whacked when he was approached in public and asked how he could write 3 volumes and not mention Malcolm Mac Wallace. Mr. Caro turns sheet white and demands the telephone number and card for the person asking the question. So it's an act of cowardice. I think, as people will see, I make a very comprehensive case that LBJ had the motive, the means, and the opportunity. He was facing prison. He was facing political ruin through both the Bobby Baker investigation and the Billy Sol Estes investigations, 2 giant corruption investigations of the 1960s. It was get rid of JFK or be dumped from the ticket and head to federal prison.
Let's talk about current politics and machinations. I know we've all seen guys, and I remember hearing you on my local station in Philadelphia talking about Spitzer, but let's talk about Anthony Weiner. I understand why he's not giving up and why he's out there. What else does he have to do other than to keep on going? What do you say? Yeah,
no, he's the ultimate political animal.
Yes.
He's addicted to his own voice. He's addicted to his TV image. He has no job. His wife, as you know, makes big bucks as a consultant. At the same time, she's working for the State Department. The only person in the United States who is allowed to do that, by the way. And there's nothing else in his life. Although I think it's important to stress that while what Weiner did is perhaps perverted and disgusting, what Spitzer did was highly illegal, and there's a big difference therein.
Yeah, but Spitzer is running for a lower office. Is that why there's not as much heat on him?
I think that's part of it, although I do think that the polls show that he's beginning to slip and that there's more and more scrutiny, not only of his current campaign, but his temperament, his lack of mental balance, his public temper tantrums, his misuse of public funds to spy on his enemies, his threats, his telephone threats to Sean Hannity, to Ambassador John Whitehead, a truly distinguished American, where he, as Attorney General, he picks up the phone and calls these men and threatens to, quote-unquote, get them. This is a guy with a screw loose. This is a guy who's mentally balanced. He is one can short of a six-pack, and he really, therefore, can't be trusted with public authority.
We're talking with Roger Stone. Now, let me go back to Weiner here and why I think this is breaking loose today, too. There's a lot of evidence that his wife, Anthony Weiner's wife, Roger, as you know, is on extended vacation hiatus from Hillary Clinton. Now we see Drudge is reporting there is a Monica Lewinsky sex tape out there with Bill Clinton. And I think all these things are very, very uncomfortable for Hillary. Do you share that, or is she beyond any of that?
Well, if you go back and look at that 60 Minutes clip of her standing up for her man when he got caught red-handed with Jennifer Flower, it's the same soulless BS. Right. In other words, I'm standing by my man. Let's be clear. The Clintons have a business arrangement. They're both corrupt. We still haven't heard the truth about Benghazi. And then she's going to tell us about being shot at the airport in Kosovo, which never happened. I mean, this woman's a bigger liar than Richard Nixon. She's incapable of telling the truth. So I think this is a minor embarrassment to the Clintons, but as you may have seen, Don, this week, a political action committee advocating her election for President of the United States, the Ready for Hillary committee already raised $1.5 million. Extraordinary.
Now, so you don't see her as inevitable. Is it just Benghazi? Is there a fatal flaw? I see her, and I defer to you. You do this. You're one of the best in the country. I do get inevitable, at least to get the nomination, no?
There's nothing ever inevitable in politics. In fact, I'm sure those who are going to her today and say, Mrs. Clinton, you must run, you're a sure thing, the right answer is really, that's what they said last time. To me, she looks old and she looks tired, and I want her to be asked those questions. In fact, I want her to be badgered with those questions. She continues to lie about Benghazi. Look, if I have to hire a kid with a bullhorn to follow her around, she's going to answer those questions. There's no way she can continue to duck them. So I believe her high watermark is right now when she's not in the fray. Let her show up in New Hampshire. I'll have some people to meet her. They have some tough questions for her. And she's not above that. This First Lady, Secretary of State, I mean, other than the fact that as Secretary of State, she systematically presided over the loss of every country in the Middle Eastern region and the worst foreign policy in our history, what does she have to show? What is her great qualification? Being married to that embarrassing hillbilly from Arkansas, Bill Clinton, that's no qualification.
Hey, Roger, let's talk about the other side. We just had Rand Paul here on the show, and I'm a big fan of what he's done so far, and I think he's been careful to get away from some of the overkill of his father. But this spat with Chris Christie going after him, my take is that Governor Christie's trying to move rightward because he's tarnished his conservative credentials by some of his other actions. Who's ahead in this whole thing with Rand Paul and Governor Christie?
Well, I'm not sure anybody's ahead or behind. I think they're both viable presidential candidates. As you point out, I think Rand Paul is more of a traditional conservative with a libertarian bent as opposed to a radical libertarian like his father. By the way, I voted for his father in the Florida Republican primary. I like the stand he took on drones. I don't like Chris Christie's stand on Sharia. I think Sharia is a mistake for America. Yes, I think your analysis is exactly right, Don. I think he's trying to shore up his credentials. But if I were Rand Paul, I would simply say, Chris, let's have a couple cheeseburgers and go for a jog.
Hey, we have to let you in on that line. The book, continued success with it. The man who killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ. Roger Stone, thanks for joining us today on the Steve Malzberg Show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Roger Stone with us here. You get to us on the Malzberg Show at 855-777-9